Today in this lecture, we discuss the Guttman and Bogardus scales. We have discussed various kind of scales. Today, we concentrate our lecture on discussing these two scales. Guttman scale was devised by Louis Guttman and his scaleogram analysis in 1944 to ensure that there is only one combination of responses for each scale score. Thus, while there may be 10 or more different ways to make a score of 2 with Likert scaling, there is only one way to make a score of 2 on a Guttman scale. So, that way the Guttman scales are unidimensional and cumulative. Cumulative implies that the component items can be ordered by degree of difficulty and that the respondents who reply positively or favorably to a difficult complex item or question would always respond positively to less difficult items or vice versa. That is the cumulativeness of the Guttman spelling or Guttman scaling. That degree of the component items are ordered by degree of difficulty and that the respondents who reply positively or favorably to a difficult complex question would always represent positively to a less difficult item or vice versa. It shall be very much clear when we proceed ahead. The most commonly used example is of a test of arithmetic ability as given below. The question 1 is 2 plus 3, question 2 is 137 plus 241, question 3 is 653 plus 712 minus 214, question 4 is bracket 128 into 237 plus 93 divided by 51 bracket minus bracket 71 divided by 45. Question 5 is bracket 349 into 760 bracket into bracket 164 plus 247 into bracket 118 minus 27 plus bracket 116 plus 339 minus bracket 47 minus 16 bracket. So, these are the 5 questions and from the question itself it is clear that the question proceeds from most easy to most difficult. Question 1 is most easy, question 5 is most difficult. So, it is reasonably expected that anyone who gives a correct answer to question 5 would also answer questions 4 to 1. And anyone who answers question 4 right would answer the questions above it, that is 3 to 1 and so on. And by using plus and minus signs, this can be shown by a diagram called scaleogram as follows. The scaleogram devised by Guttman is before us regarding the questions of mathematics or arithmetics that we have devised 5 questions. It is expected that anyone who gives correct answer to question 5 would also give correct answer to questions 1 to 4. Anyone who answers question 4 right will answer question 1 to 3 and so on. So the Guttman uses a plus sign and minus sign for making his scaleogram, and this can be shown by a diagram called a scaleogram as follows. We have the scores in the Guttman on the both side, the questions and the score. So we find that the one who has been able to do question 5, his score is 5 and he has all the positive scores in the Guttman scaleogram. Similarly, if somebody does question 4 correctly, then he has a score of 4 and he has 4 pluses beginning from the question 4, 3, 2 to 1. And if somebody has done 3 questions right, then he gets 3 and his positive sign begins from 3 to 2 to 1. And if somebody has done only 1 question, then of course correctly, then it means that he has, that is, he goes to, his positive sign goes to 1. And of course 0 score is for those who have done nothing correctly. So that way the Guttman's scaleogram has been devised. Similarly, if a student agrees to prepare for IS examination, he would not mind in preparing for the PhD degree and for MA examination. These shown as below. These are respondent ABCD agrees to prepare for IS examination, agrees for PhD degree, agrees to prepare for MA examination. So, the one who agrees for preparing the IS exam, he has the positive sign in all the 3. The one who agrees for, say, for PhD degree, he may also agree to prepare for the exam, MA examination. So, 1 negative and 2 positives. And also, if there is a respondent who does it for C, then also he has only agreed to prepare for MA examination, and D is for 0. D not ready for anything, that is total score 0. So here again, if the most toughest examination one agrees to prepare, that is for IS exam, then of course he agrees to prepare for PhD degree and agrees to prepare for the MA examination. So here also the positive indicates agreement with the statement and negative indicates agreement with the statement. Negative state disagreement with the statement, whereas positive indicates agreement with the statement. The items in the above table are unidimensionally ranked. The scale is cumulative in that none of the respondents has a disagreement response before agreement response or plus response after a minus response. Thus, information on the position of any respondent's last positive response allows the prediction of all his other responses to the item. So, the last response in both the example gives us the position of the respondent, and this by this is called a cumulative scale, which is Guttman scale. Suppose We want to study women's attitude towards husbands beating their wives. A large number would be against it, though on different grounds. Some of the arguments could be has as a companion has equal status with her husband. Most complex answer. Then second, husband cannot have a dominant position and wife a subordinate position because wife performs as important function for family as husband. Third, wife is as educated and commanding as husband. Fourth, law prescribes punishment for physical cruelty. 5. Religion does not permit it. So, these are the questions regarding the beating of women from their husbands. So, if suppose an opinion maker or a respondent agrees to the first, it means she agrees with all the questions. And if she agrees with second, it means he agrees with all second, third, fourth and 5. And if she agrees with third, it means she agrees with third, 4 and 5. And if she agrees with 4, that it means she agrees with the fourth and 5. And the least is 5. Very simplest answer that religion does not permit it. So, a position of a respondent would be very clear from one question which he or she responds to. That is the beauty of this Guttman scale. The different percentage opposing wife battering suggests different levels of being against domestic violence. Wife having equal status, performing equally important roles, having equal resources with husband appear to be much stronger indicators than being legally and religiously forbidden acts. So, question 3 and 4 of the question 4 and 5, they were the simplest questions. Then Guttman scaling is based on the notion that anyone who gives a strong indicator of some variable will also give the simple and weaker indicators. That is what we are dealing with. That the notion is that anyone who gives to not to a stronger indicator for some variable, of course, he or she gives the simple and weaker indicators also. We can give an example for the development and application of a Guttman scale for the study of the severity of intercaste riots in a state. This is based on behavioral indicators rather than on attitudes. The riots were reported during 1999. Information used in the construction of a scale was provided by the police. The scale includes following 5 items of riot severity: killing, arson, looting, throwing stones, slogan shouting. These items are ordered from most to least severe. The most severe is killing. Then it dilutes down to arson, then to looting, then throwing stones, and the least severe being the slogan shouting. So, we have ordered these these statements, or we have ordered these items of right severity in terms of the severity of the phenomena, and that is the most severe to less severe, beginning from the most severe to the least severe, that is from killing to the slogan shouting. Then these items are ordered from most to least severe. The scale is presented in the following table. We have this table, and here we have designed the areas also. So we have the scale type, the areas, and the items reported. Areas are organized into 6 scale types according to the degree of severity, with 6 indicating the least severe and 1 the most severe riot activity. Here riot severity is measured as dependent variable. The Guttman scale of riot severity suggests that the events that constitute the severity of riots are not randomly generated. On the contrary, if one employs the property of Guttman scales, the sequence of events for level of riot severity may be predicted. So, we have organized here 6 scale, no scale items, slogan shouting, above plus throwing stones, above plus looting, above plus arson, above plus killing. So, we have here the according to the severity we have arranged it, and that is what we have got the areas 5%, 14%, 11%, 10%, 7%, and 33%, and that way we know how much, what is the opinion or the attitude of the people towards a certain kind of phenomenon, that is the caste riot. So that the Guttman scale of riot severity suggests that the constitution of the severity of riots are not randomly generated. On the contrary, if one implies the property of Guttman scales, the sequence of events for levels of riot severity may be predicted. It is to be noted that in Guttman scale, if all items n are scalable as 5 items in the above example, the scaleogram will contain n plus 1 response patterns, which are known as scale types. We have seen that we had 5 items, and there are 6 scale types, 6, and even in the IS example also we have the 4, whereas in the another in the Guttman scaleogram also we have 6 with the 5 statements. Areas are organized into 6 scale types according to the degree of severity, with 6 indicating the least severe and 1 of the most severe riot activity. Here riot severity is measured as dependent variable. The Guttman scale of riot severity suggests that the events that constitute the severity of riots are not randomly generated. On the contrary, if one employs the property of Guttman scales, the sequence of events for levels of riot severity may be predicted. It is also to be noted that in Guttman scale, if all items, that is n, are scalable as 5 items in the above examples, the scaleogram will contain n plus 1 response patterns, which are known as scale types. We have already observed this in the previous examples also. One can infer from an individual's total score precisely which items he agreed or disagreed with. This is different from Thurstone and Likert techniques, where it is impossible to tell from the score what the individual answers were. So, in a Guttman's technique, the scale implies that a person who answers a given question favorably will have a higher total score than a person who answers it unfavorably. We have seen this in all the examples that we have discussed. We may thus conclude that, or we conclude that Thurstone scale is a technique for creating indicators of variables and judges determining the intensities of different indicators. Likert scaling is a measurement technique based on the use of standardized response categories like strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree. Guttman scaling is a method of discovering and using the empirical intensity, a structure among several indicators of a given variable. In discussing these scales, we have given no more than a simplified introduction and have confined ourselves to outlining the techniques and have not given the statistical analysis required in some of them, like factor analysis in Likert scaling or coefficient of reproducibility in Guttman scaling. Because the Likert scale also and the Guttman scaling also can have some further sophisticated statistical analysis, that is like factor analysis and the coefficient of reproducibility. So, we have restricted ourselves only in studying the various aspects of Guttman scale, or what is Guttman scale and how it is made. That is it. This is why this is something which may be taken at a higher level of the course. Next, we are going to discuss another scale which is also very important in studying the society, and this is why we wanted to include this scale in the course itself. Of course, there are so many scales and all scales may not be covered in this short course, but then we have tried to cover most of the important scales that are used normally in the research. So, now we proceed to discuss the Bogardus social distance scale. What is this social distance scale? This Bogardus developed a scale for measuring the social distance or having associations or closeness of contact with different groups. Bogardus had used the social distance scale for studying associations between Americans and Albanians as living in the same country, living in the same community, living in the same neighborhood, living next door, living as marriage partners. These are the various kind of Bogardus scale concerning the Americans and Albanians. What is that? First, living in the same country, second, living in the same community, third, living in the same neighborhood, fourth, living in the next door, and fifth, living as marriage partners. Bogardus' assumption was that if a person was willing to accept the fifth type of relationship, he would be willing to have the first four types of relations too. Meaning that if American and Albanians, they are ready to live as marriage partners, then they are ready to live as next door neighbors also. They are ready to live in the same neighborhood also. They are they are in this in the ready to live in the same community also, and they are in the same country also. And if somebody or some responds that he is ready to live in the same neighborhood, what does it mean? It means that he is or she is not ready to live next door and to live as marriage partners, but he or she is ready to live as same community and in the same country. That is what explains Bogardus' assumption that if a person has been willing or is willing or was willing to accept the fifth type of relationship, he would be willing to have the first four types of the relations also. Then concerning our own country, in India, now that so much has been done for improving the social status of tribals and Dalits, and they also have also changed their occupations and achieved some higher social status and positions. To what extent people of higher caste would like to associate with them? So, the question is framed with different type of associations with them. That is association between the higher caste and the Dalits and tribals. The questions are, what kind of association? Office colleague, as neighbors, as friends, as marriage partners? There is logical structure of intensity inherent among the items. If a person is willing to accept a Dalit as a marriage partner, it means he must be willing to have associations of lesser intensity, say as a friend, as a neighborhood, as an office colleague. So, if he is or she is able to say accept the association as friend, this means that he is able to accept them as neighbors, them as office colleagues, but not as marriage partners. If suppose one says they are going to accept them as neighbors, that it means they are going to accept him as colleagues in the office, but not as friends and not as marriage partners. So, that is the Bogardus scale. There is logical structure of intensity inherent among the items. If a person is willing to accept a Dalit as a marriage partner, he must be willing to have associations of lesser intensity, say as a friend, as a neighbor, and an office colleague. Empirically, one may find the largest number of people accepting Dalits as colleagues in office and the fewest accepting intercaste marriages, that is, as accepting them as marriage partners. So, the argument is that if a person disagrees with easy items, he will disagree with hard items too. And if a person agrees with hard items, he would agree to the easy items also. And this is why we are seeing this example here. So, this is a scale which is very useful in the social research. And this kind of scale is very useful in measuring the kind of acceptability or unacceptability to different groups, to different castes, to different religions, and for the study of the human society. So, if a person agrees with the hard item, that is say marrying, then it means he agrees to all the easy items before the marriage that comes, that is as accepting as friend, accepting as neighbor, accepting as colleague. And if a person is unable to say accept them as neighbors, it means they they are not able to accept them as friends and as marriage partners. So, the argument is that if a person disagrees with easy items, he will disagree with hard items too, and if a person agrees with hard item, he would agree with the easy items also. Hardest item in our example being the marriage partner, and the easiest item in our in our in our example being the office colleague. So, the thus knowing how many relationships a high caste respondent will accept with Dalits, we can know which relationship must have been accepted. That is very clear from the data that we gather. A single number can accurately summarize 5 or 6 data items without loss of information. And of course, this suggests economy of scale as a data reduction device. So, it's not that it is convenient, but it is also economic of the data economic, and this suggests economy of this recommends the economy of scaling as a data reduction advice. So, the Bogardus scale is a very important scale which studies the social distance between the two groups, between the communities, between the various kind of types of research, the problem that we have been given to take up. So, the in we have the situation, this kind of phenomenon in every country. We have the example of white and blacks in USA, or the example of say the example of Americans and Afro-Asians in United States of America, or the example of say migrants and the nationals, or the original people in Europe, or the all these kind of, or in any developing countries also and developed countries also. So, it is not only the phenomenon in developing countries, but it is a human phenomenon, which of course it is a negative phenomenon, but human phenomenon which in fact is existing all over the world, whether they are the developed countries or whether developing countries. But this Bogardus social distance scale is a very eminent scale, is a Bogardus social distance scale is a very popular and very useful scale to in fact measure the social distance or social distance or association or closeness of contact with different groups. So, that way we have covered both the Guttman scale also and the Bogardus scale also. I am sure that these two scales would also be very useful when many of you go for research pursuits. And I also hope that I have been able to clear you the concepts of the Guttman and Bogardus scales. With this, I in fact stop and thank you very much.